Okay. This will be part two. Part two of me going over Coin Key, my 2D puzzle platforming project in Unity. And in part two, I want to give more, more detailed technical overview of what's going on in this thing. So, I guess we should start with the art, because that's kind of how I started. I found this art pack that had a bunch of stuff, and I was like, ooh, that'd be fun to play around with, make everything work. So, there were some enemies, which I've still got to mess around with some of these other ones. All the items. There's a couple more there that I haven't used. I mean, there's lots of variations. I could do multiple types of keys, for example, or button switches instead of levers, or whatever. There's even a hint and sneak peek. I've been playing around with it a little bit. There's a laser gun, but I just don't, it doesn't really fit this project to put shooting in it, but it's there. But basically, kind of got everything pretty standard organization. I mean, we've got our assets here, we've got our animation, art, a physics material for the player. That's a little secret. A lot of people don't know about physics materials, but this is, I'll give you an example. Okay, so here's an example. So let's say we're jumping and running into this wall. Well, what I think a lot of people have run into, and of course I ran into this early on, is that you'll jump into the wall and you'll stick to it. Especially if you're moving a rigid body to make your player move, which is the most common way. You'd be sticking in the wall. You're like, why am I sticking in the wall? Well, I'll tell you why. Because you have friction on your player. So what these do, these physics materials, is allows you to modify that. So friction's very low, 0.001. Boom, no more sticking to walls. Problem solved. We've got our prefabs. You can see we got the door, we got the ladder, the bounce. This is the gate, the blockers. A few scenes here. These are our levels 1 through 4. These two, this is level 0 is kind of a prefab. This is where I start making new levels. Level test. This is where I play around with new ideas. See, sneak peek. I'm looking at the ray gun now. The main menu. This was basically just, I brought in a bunch of the art, put it together. It took a little while, but I wanted it to look kind of nice, I also wanted to change that layer right there so that it covers those grass. Game over is very simple. I don't even know if we can see it because it's just a UI. There's our game over screen. One thing I need to work on is retry the level instead of the whole game. We got our animations are pretty simple. The enemies got 2 frames of animation. These are the coins. These are all the items. I separate my animations by what they're attached to. So we got player, enemy, item. Item could maybe even be further separated. We've got, here's all the scripts. So one thing about the scripts is that it'll make more sense if I show you. We're working off of a few main ones. We got our player controller here. Have different things organized up here. Probably need Oh, maybe I should make some regions just so it's collapsible in the editor, but it's not really a large enough file for me to worry too much. Here we've got what's going on when we... So one of the things that I did in this project, this is where I really get to breaking this down, is using the new input system, which gives you this control map objects, or if you right click in your objects, you can create at the bottom an input actions. That's what this is. It's an input actions object, and here you make a map, and then you have all your actions on your map. So we have like move, jump, climb, an interact button, a shoot button, and then from there in your code you use those. So the tricky thing about this is that you have to have all this stuff in every script that requires access to your controls. You've got to make sure you have the controller map defined and enable and disabled, and these statements here just put different. I'm not going to go too much into it, but it is different than the normal input dot get key or whatever that everybody uses. It definitely provides a lot more functionality like outside of the project. Like if you were to put in different controllers or whatever. Here we just have to get all our, here we've got our movement section. Movement's pretty simple. This is not going to look much different than probably other people's movements. Yeah, here's my notes about, so when I put in the new input system, I kind of did it in the middle of working on this, so there was like half a day where I had to fix all my controls, and also I had to fix a lot of little things to make the project build. So if you're going to use the input system, I recommend doing it on a new project, not one you're already working on, because you can make it work, but fortunately I only had a couple buttons at the time. I hadn't added some of the other things yet. Oh, we got all sorts of collision checking, and this is probably the ugliest part of this code, is just that I have so many objects that you interact with on the player's end, that this whole on trigger enter is just a mess at this point. I don't really need these debug statements at this point. But they kind of give you an idea of what's going on here. Here's one for the bouncer. This is on trigger stay. If you happen to be inside the collider of a bouncer object, then it just modifies your jump speed, and then this is where it sets the animation for the bouncer. That all happens on the player. The camera manager here is probably the one script that I do want to go over in this video, just because I think this would help a lot of people, and also it's really easy to do. You can make this camera manager. I've used this in a few projects now, and now it works. This is how to do it with the new input system. So we've got, you know, an offset distance for our y-axis right here, cam dist y, and then we've got a speed for our camera pan right here. Of course, we had to set up our control map, so that's, I don't need the awake. You don't have, you can do this statement in on enable. You don't have to do it in awake. But so anyway, that's just for the control map there. And basically there's just one function, two functions. One, it follows the player, camera follow player. We just find the camera here, its position. We just modify it based on our player object's position, because this script is attached to your player object. So all these will do your player stuff. And then we've got the pan camera. So this is where if you hit your S key, it makes it go down. You saw that in the... I'll show you what I'm talking about. This right here. A little magic right there. So this camera following the player and doing that, it's all one script. It's really simple. You can use that script on anything. I'll even put it up on the screen again. You know, go ahead and go through this on your own maybe and copy it. It will be different if you're not using the input system here. You would say something like, instead of reading this float value, you'd probably say something like if input dot get key down, and then, you know, your pan key, whatever you want that to be, you know. So you'd probably do a line of code like kind of like that, but and then on key up you'd probably put this last part like dot get key up. That's kind of how you would set up these two statements down here if you were using the regular input system. Just FYI. But go ahead and take that one. That's a freebie. Just because, I mean, there's a million people with videos on how to do that, but from what I found, mine is a little bit simpler and it gets the job done. You could easily add more to this. Easily. This is for the game over. One other thing about this main project, and I'll probably make a video on this one because it was, for me, a challenge. But if you take a look at, if you watch the first video, you remember from level 3 the switch gate. Dude, this bad boy right here. yeah, this thing is great, but it was also hard to make. And ironically, this script isn't even that bad now, but at first I was trying to do it in a weird way. So the main thing here was just we're checking, you know, on the control again. I guess, you know, I'm not gonna have time to break all this down in this overview video, but maybe I'll go through and break this one down, because I had to figure this one out. What else do we have? I mean, overall, that's pretty much the project right there in a nutshell. You can see the scenes, you can see our background object right here is quite small because it in fact is where we have our I'm going to organize some of this stuff just because it's annoying. Get that out of there. I have categories for all this stuff. Try to organize that a bit more. Keep those enemies and items. That's fine. But yeah, that's pretty much the whole thing in a nutshell.